Hello, Insiders. How's everybody doing today? We have some exciting new presumptive conditions brought to you by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Before we get started, if everybody wants to just pop in real quick, a little note in chat, tell us what branch you served in, where you currently reside, and the years that you served. We'd really appreciate that. In the interim, while we're waiting for you to do that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Senior Veteran Coach Darrell. I worked for the VA for 11 years, 6.5 of that I spent as a rating specialist. And I was also an instructor for the VA and would go out to Baltimore and teach other people around the nation how to be rating specialists. I did serve in the Marine Corps during the first Gulf War. So the topic we're going to talk about is very near and dear to my heart. I have a couple of other gentlemen here with me. SVC Stacey.
Hey, thanks, Darrell. SVC Stacey Allen. So I too am a Gulf War vet. I served from 87 to 93 Army. And so this is real near and dear to my heart as well. So we're going to be getting into some new presumptive conditions that the VA just added on. Going to do somewhat of a deep dive into that, put out some good information, and thank you guys for being here. Travis?
All right, my name is Travis Brobst, Training Manager here, and I want to thank you all for being here today. And I want you all to know this as well, that a few weeks ago we had a different topic planned for today, but the VA released some new information, and we always want to stay relevant. And we thought it was really important that we had this conversation today. So we're making this happen today, because for a lot of you, what we're going to talk about today, one, it's going to help you. Two, if you haven't been able to hit your final goal, this could be the thing that actually helps get you there. And this truly, after reading the release over and over again, the only thing I can say is that this is a positive step forward. All right. It's definitely a positive step forward. And it's going to open the door for so many veterans who otherwise previously would not have been eligible to move forward.
Absolutely. So typically, and I know a lot of you are returning viewers. Typically, we would go through and we give kudos to a lot of those people who are now posting in the chat. However, because this is such an important topic and because we have a lot of information we want to share, we're going to forego that for right now. And we're just going to get right to the meat of it. Right. So, Stacey, what are we talking about? What's going on here? What did the VA do? What did they do for veterans?
Yeah, so it's actually absolutely amazing. I was so thrilled to see this come down the pike. So they added 3 new presumptive conditions for the burn pits. All right. So if you were over and we're going to do a breakdown on the countries and areas and stuff, but they have added sinusitis, chronic rhinitis, and asthma to the presumptive list for those that served over in the Middle East. And again, like I said, we'll break down the areas here as we go through this, but this is huge. This is huge. I can tell you, I myself have dealt with chronic sinusitis for years, and it was denied. Okay, so it definitely affects me, and I'm sure it affects thousands, tens of thousands of other veterans as well. So this is really good stuff.
So what you're saying is all those people that put their name on that burn pit registry and filed their claims, and the VA paid attention to that, and they decided through studies that they were going to go ahead and enact presumptive conditions for the burn pit, for exposures to burn pit.
Man, that is exactly right, Darrell. That is exactly right. So, and again, you don't have to have been right there at the burn pit. It's the entire region over there. And specifically, I'll hand it over to Travis here in just a minute, and we'll go through the specific areas. They've actually added on a few new areas to the presumptive areas that we've known, for years and years. So Travis, you want to break those out for us?
Yes, absolutely. So I won't give like an entire list of every last country. What I'll do is I'll list some key countries, and then what we'll do is we'll share the list with you afterwards of the exact breakdown. But what I do want to say, for those of you that served in Afghanistan, which is probably going to be a lot of you watching today, this is a door opener for you, okay? Now, when we talk about our Southwest Asia area of operations presumptives, like that would be like for those of you who serve in Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi, places like that, you all have been eligible for presumptives for those areas such as chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, things of that nature, fibromyalgia, okay? Well, this opens the door for those who served in Afghanistan, but it also opens your door wider if you served in Iraq or Kuwait or in Southwest Asia, because you will also qualify for this. So I'm going to break this down into two different components, all right? So if you served in Afghanistan, all right, your timeline is going to be late September 2001 to present, all right? That's going to be the time frame for service, and we're going to break all of this down further later. If you served in like Iraq or Kuwait, Darrell, is it 1990 or is it 1991 to present?
1991.
1991 to present, okay? So there are two different time frames that we're dealing with. Now, one thing, and we finally got some clarification on this. We talked about it a lot yesterday. So we're going to throw out some examples because examples help us understand things better. So now we've got to determine eligibility and what makes us eligible. All right. So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to say Billy Bob served in Afghanistan in 2008. Okay. So Billy Bob served in Afghanistan in 2008. Everybody copy on that. Now, he initially went on to active duty in 2004. So he went on to active duty in 2004, and he was deployed to Afghanistan in 2008. Well, he left active duty in 2014. He decided, okay, I've had enough of this life. I'm going to go do something else. I'm not going to make it to my 20 years. So again, he started in 2004 and left in 2014. And we said that he went to Afghanistan in 2008. Now, it doesn't matter if Billy Bob was in the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the Army. As you all know, the Air Force has short deployments while the Army has very long deployments. So the amount of time that Billy Bob was in Afghanistan in 2008 does not matter, okay? Now, I have been talking a lot, and I'm going to shift it back to somebody else because this is a panel.
Hey, welcome aboard, Caleb. We have senior veteran coach Caleb.
What's going on, guys? Sorry about that tech difficulties there. Sorry about that.
Right on.
I love your American flag.
Thanks, brother. Better late than never, right?
Right.
That's right.
So the VA has recognized presumptive conditions, for example, Agent Orange exposure, and they do all of that under the 38 CFR Part 3, the Code of Federal Regulations. And those are all the presumptive conditions that the VA recognizes are all under the Part 3 of the Code of Federal Regulations, 38 CFR Part 3. When you're talking exposure to like radiation, there's some presumptives for that. When you're talking exposure to Agent Orange, it's 3.309. And then you get into the Gulf War exposure, which is 3.317. Now they've created a whole new 38 CFR reference, it's 3.320. And really all you need to do is Google that, 38 CFR 3.320, and it'll cover most of what we're going to talk about today. All right. So it's really important that that if you have the ability to do that you go ahead and look that stuff up when you're filing your claim or if you're interim filing your claim. So let's go ahead and get right to the meat of it. Okay. So you talked about Afghanistan being part of it. Caleb, do you have the list of countries that they're actually looking at as far as the presumptive conditions for burn pit exposure?
Not at the moment. Let me pull it up. Yeah, let me pull it up.
While he's pulling that up, I'm going to finish with that initial example of Billy Bob leaving service in 2014. So we said that he served in 2008. Okay, so the rule is, the way that we interpret that rule is, all right, so he left service in 2014. That means that he has to have a diagnosis for one of the 3 specified conditions by 2024. It's a 10-year rule. So it's not 10 years from when he leaves Afghanistan, it's 10 years from when he leaves his active duty service. All right. So he had the exposure, and we're going to call the exposure his service in Afghanistan in 2008. That's the exposure. All right. His end date is 2014 because that's when he left. Therefore, he's got till 2024 to do this. Now, if Billy Bob, let's say that he's having sinus issues or he's having breathing issues, a lot of people that have sinus issues, they just suck it up and they deal with it. They figure it out. They go to the pharmacy. They might, whatever. This is the time in which you want to get your butt to the doctor. All right. Get to the doctor, get something diagnosed, because whether you have it or you don't have it, 1, it's going to make your quality of life better, if they find out that you have it, but 2, it's going to help you in this realm as well. Okay.
Yeah, great points, Travis. Yeah.
I want to clarify just one thing on these 3 conditions. So the key word for all 3 of these conditions is chronic. Okay, so I know a lot of people deal with say allergic rhinitis. Okay, so that is not one of these presumptives. The key is chronic. Okay, so if you're just having seasonal allergies, that's not going to be covered under this presumptive. Okay, so be aware of that. If you're looking at your problem list in your blue button report and it says, allergies or allergic rhinitis, you need to maybe have your doc do a little deeper dive on that and see if it truly is just allergic rhinitis, or if it's something you've been dealing with for years, it should be classified as chronic. Okay, so be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Stacey. So I do have that list of countries pulled up here, so we can go ahead and rattle those off as we continue our discussion here. So Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Djibouti. And basically all of the waterways and the skies above those countries are part of those eligibility locations. So we can repeat that later on if people have questions about that. But those are the countries listed. Yep.
In addition to Afghanistan. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
So I'm seeing a lot of chat in the chat room, obviously, because that's what it's there for. I'm seeing people saying, "Well, I got out in 2005 or I got out in 2006, so I'm basically passed over for this." Is that necessarily the condition, Travis?
That is not the case at all. And I saw that comment as well, Darrell. Thank you for tackling that. And let me just let me explain this again. So you had to have had the diagnosis within 10 years of leaving military service. So back to the Billy Bob example, who went into service in 2004 and left military service in 2014. He had his exposure in Afghanistan in 2008. So that's the exposure. Now from 2014 to 2024, as long as he gets his diagnosis within that time frame, he is good. He is good. And then we can take that, or you can take that diagnosis and you can file a claim with that. And we'll talk more about the inner mechanics of that later. But it's not that it, so for example, the gentleman here that said, "Hey, I retired in 2005. Okay. So let's say that you had your exposure, and I'm just going to say 2003 as an example. Well, if you got a diagnosis for asthma between 2003 and 2003 from some doctor somewhere, someplace between 2003 and 2013, you're good. Make sense? Now, with that being said, during our pre-meeting for this, Stacey talked a lot about, symptoms and how we don't want to just rule anybody out. Stacey, I'm going to hand the floor back over to you and kind of let you talk about that. If they didn't get a diagnosis, how they might still possibly be eligible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Travis. So the key is that you developed symptoms to these conditions. You don't necessarily even need that diagnosis. But if you can show in your medical records that you were seen for these symptoms, that fall within that asthma diagnosis or fall within that sinusitis diagnosis, even without that specific diagnosis, you could certainly file a claim and make that argument, right? So, I'm seeing so much stuff in the chat, and there's some great questions there. So let's hit this one. Alan says, so if I have asthma but not service connected, could I reapply? I retired in 05. So the answer is absolutely you could.
Yep.
Absolutely you could. In fact, we're going to go into the specific how-tos and what to do if you have filed for one of these conditions in the past and have been denied, okay? Or if you've never filed for them in the past. And we're going to go through the how-tos a little later in the program.
Hey, Stacey, let's back that up a little bit.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. So you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis, but what would be some examples of something to look for throughout your treatment that maybe not exactly a diagnosis of asthma or a diagnosis of rhinitis or sinusitis? What would be something you could look for in your treatment record?
Yeah, sure. So let's say that you've gone to the doctor for chronic headaches or maybe something to do with your vision. That could be a sign of sinusitis. Okay, so that exam that would have been done, the doctor's looking up your nose, looking in your ears, looking in your eyes and your mouth and all that stuff, and they document certain things that could support that diagnosis of sinusitis or rhinitis, right? Or maybe you've had exercise-induced asthma, and you go see your doctor after PT. You can't catch your breath. Maybe that has actually developed into chronic asthma. So there's a lot of different things to look for. So I would say any respiratory condition that you may have been seen for, take a deep dive into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great points. Now, another thing too that I would like to really point out is, okay, and you guys are getting it. I see it here in the chat. Like this guy says, exposed 91, diagnosed 94. That's what I'm talking about right there. So if you are in that 10-year window from when you left active duty, so it's not 10 years from exposure, it's 10 years from when you left active duty. We're all in agreement on that, right? Okay, so do your best to actually get a diagnosis for it. Go see a doctor and be like, hey, look, I'm having these symptoms. Get that on paper and get a diagnosis. Now, for those of you, you're past your 10-year window and you've got some symptoms documented, kind of like what Stacey was talking about, absolutely, we'll try to take that and do the best we can with it. But if you're still in your 10 years, do your future self a favor and go see a doctor and go get diagnosed for that condition, okay?
Right. I'm sorry, Stacey. I'm seeing a lot of comments about sleep apnea. Keep in mind that sleep apnea is not one of the chronic conditions. It's sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma. Okay, which eventually you can make that connection to sleep apnea, but for right now, it's rhinitis, sinusitis, and asthma. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Darrell. So I know there's a lot of questions. Listen, this is a huge deal for veterans that served over in the Middle East. And if you're just not sure what to do or where to go, who to talk to, you can sign up with us. I'll ask the ops to go ahead and put the link up there. But sign up with us. You'll get a coach. You'll get one of us or one of the other phenomenal coaches at VACI, and we can walk you through this process. So there you go, VACIfree30.com. You go there and sign up, and we will actually have a free 30-minute strategy session with you and break down, listen to your story, and throw out some options for you. So we'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. We're not closing any doors around here. So when we talk about some of the parameters that come with this and some of the specifics, such as that 10-year window and things like that, I don't want to scare anybody from not trying this or not talking to a coach, because there might be another way of going about it. It's not possible for us to go through every scenario in the time that we've been given today. So please please, please, even if you don't have one of these issues and you think you need help in another area, like Stacey said, you reach out to us and somebody from our team will be in contact within 48 hours and we will help get you going.
Yeah,
So-
I have something to add just a little bit with that, Travis, and the rest of the panel. Just a little bit about my story. I came in at 80%. It was about a year ago, and I partnered up with my coach, and he was able to help get me recognized for the conditions that I was dealing with and that I was denied with. And he helped me get over the finish line at 100% permanent and total. So now I get to share my success with all of the veterans I come in contact with every day, and all of the coaches here on the team. We look forward to doing that each and every day. So please, if you have questions, sign up for that free 30-minute phone call. We'd love to take a look at your case and help you come up with a customized solution. So please reach out for any and all help that you need, okay?
All right. Hey, so we already talked about what the presumptive conditions were, right? Asthma, rhinitis, sinusitis, the three that they're currently recognizing. We've already talked about where in theater, what theater of operations that they're linking those presumptive conditions to. So let me ask you guys, what happens if, say, I filed for it 6 years ago? Okay, I have a diagnosis. I filed for it. They denied it based on number one, it wasn't presumptive back then. Number two, I couldn't link it to any other condition. So what ramifications do I have as far as getting them to recognize it now? What steps should I take?
Man, what a great question, Darrell. So yeah, I'll jump on this one. So like I said, if you file for this, and this actually applies to me because I did file for sinusitis years ago and was denied. And I am a Gulf War vet, served over in that area. So simply what you're going to do is you're going to fill out the VA form 20995, the supplemental claim form, and send it back through, right? Make sure you put in there that you are a Gulf War, or you're going to put your theater of operations and the dates that you served over there, and that will fall right into that presumptive timeline, and it should be a pretty straightforward claim for you.
So doing that 0995, I don't need to, my only new and relevant information I need to do is maybe a 4138.
You could do that. Yeah, exactly. That's on that 4138, the statement in support of claim. That's simply what you're going to do. You're going to put in there where you served, when you served, and request, review. Now, if you have new and relevant evidence, ongoing issues with your asthma or sinusitis, certainly put those notes in there as well.
All right. So now let's look at it. So if I haven't filed a claim for it before, but now that it's a presumptive, I want to file a claim for it. Caleb, how do I do that?
Oh, if you haven't been denied in the past?
Right.
Yeah. So basically what we're going to do is get on va.gov and file a brand new claim, filling out that 4138 statement of support of claim form, citing your time in service, your time in country, and then the time that you were diagnosed or that you were complaining about these symptoms, and submit that as your evidence with that new claim.
So 4138 is important because this is such a new thing that there might be some rating specialists out there that forget while they're rating the claim that it's a new presumptive.
Right.
Happen, but it does happen. So Travis, what I need to get, so I've got asthma. Would I need to get a nexus statement?
Absolutely not. You don't need to get a nexus statement. And you want to know why you don't need a nexus statement? And let me just point out, this is for any presumptive issue. Okay. Because that is the fact that you were there, you were exposed at that time in that place, you're good. So think about exposure. You had that exposure that met the time frame requirement and met the location requirement. Therefore, that is your nexus. So like Darrell was saying, though, you want to do a 4138 because what that's going to do is you can just put like a little blurb in there. And I always advise my clients to do this just because it's bureaucracy and it is the federal government. And these people who are reviewing cases, they are human beings. And I mean, when we think about all the updates we have here at our organization, let alone like the VA, and I'm sure a lot of you, wherever you work, there's different updates. You don't always remember those. So to help them remember, you would do a 4138, basically, put some information on there and be like, look, See attached, my diagnosis, checkbox. You're giving them your diagnosis. Per the new VA regulation updates on, I want to say August 5th, 2021, I have asthma. I was diagnosed in 2014, and I got, and then you just put it all in there, and it's right there for the rater of the view, and it should be pretty easy. They stamp their, approval on it, send you to a C&P exam to make sure you have the asthma, and wrap it up.
And you know what? The easiest way to prove that you were in country is typically your DD-214 will show Southwest Asia Service Medal. It'll show the Iraqi campaign medal. Typically, those kinds of things are they're that link. That's your nexus. Actually, is just having that service, just like Travis said. There was a question in the chat I'd like to address real quick. So, if you are currently service connected for those conditions, I would not wait for the VA to come back in and say, well, I'm going to give you an upgrade, because you've already been service connected for them. At that point, that's a simple increase. And anytime you do a simple increase on a claim, the VA is bound by their duty to assist to give you an examination. So to whoever put that in the chat about the 2.0 percentage for rhinitis and sinusitis, that's a simple increase. All right.
I'll touch on the next question there. Service connection for dyspnea rated at 0. Nobody ever used the word asthma. So no, dyspnea is different than asthma. Dyspnea simply means difficulty breathing. But unless you have that actual diagnosis of asthma, that's not going to fall under the presumptions. Okay, so you may work with your doctor and get a clarification on that dyspnea, because that's actually a symptom and not necessarily a diagnosis in and of itself.
We got a Facebook user. Did you accidentally mean the type in 2003 in Afghanistan? They just could have been a typo, or maybe you actually were in Afghanistan in 1993. But yeah, definitely get with the coach, and we'll talk further about that. Now, also, listen, I told you all at the beginning of this conversation that this door has been open. Okay, I didn't say it was open extremely wide yet, right? So this is a start. This is a start that they're recognizing these 3 different illnesses. Okay, we hope, we pray, and that more is to come on this. I personally don't believe that this is all we're going to see. I think more is to come. Darrell, as a former employee of the Veterans Administration, what is your take? What is your opinion on more to come? Do you see more to come, or do you think that this might be it for some time?
Actually, I have access to the Federal Register that covers it's what the VA uses when they pass down new laws and new regulations, stuff like that. So they are looking at other conditions currently. They just wanted to get these out. I mean, they're looking at certain types of cancers. There's a broad spectrum of things that they are looking at. So, yeah, this is not it. You're absolutely right. This is just a small opening is all it is. But it's an important one because it opens the door for other things to come in. I mean, if you take a look at simply look at the Agent Orange exposure, look at how it's evolved over the past years. And maybe we should back up a little bit, because I do see some questions in that people don't understand what presumptive means. Okay, so Caleb, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So presumptive doesn't mean automatic, right? Okay, that's the one thing to keep in mind. We need to meet these eligibility requirements, and within the time frame and location that we're talking about here. But that's the big thing to keep in mind. It doesn't mean it's automatic. You can't just submit a claim for any of these 3 conditions and be granted automatically. So presumptive is a very different word, right? So we need to spell out exactly how we're eligible and file that claim accordingly, whether it's a brand new claim or if we've been denied in the past, and go ahead and file the supplemental claim like we were talking about a few minutes ago. Yeah.
Could I add just a little more onto that, Caleb? If you don't mind?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just getting kind of back to basics for those that maybe, not a current member of VA Claims Insider and joining us for one of the first times. Here's a little knowledge nugget. So there's 3 things that you need for a service connection. One is an in-service event. One is a current diagnosis. And the last one is a nexus, and that is that thing from a medical professional that connects your current diagnosis to that in-service event. And what a presumptive does, it takes the place of that nexus. In other words, the VA concedes the nexus. You don't have to prove that. But you still have to, like Caleb said, you still have to meet the other requirements. Right? So there you go.
Yes, and to add on to what both of them are saying, it's not automatic, okay? But at the same time, if you have the diagnosis, you meet the time frame requirements, you meet the exposure requirements, okay, which we said for the three that we're talking about today, there is no time frame for that. So if you were in Afghanistan or Iraq or Kuwait, for example, in the specified time frame, and then you happen to have a diagnosis that meets the time frame requirements, then there's really no reason why you should get turned down. However, if the VA is like really, really digging into this and they feel like it clearly could have been caused by something else, they could deny you then. So if you go into that C&P exam and you're like, yeah, I've been smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day for the last 20 years, whatever, it's possible you could get a denial, because they're going to be like, well, sure, you were exposed to, burn pits in Afghanistan, but you definitely haven't been helping matters. You've been smoking forever, So you got to use a little bit of common sense too,
Right. You're exactly right, Travis. And to add on a little piece with that, the verbiage there, if this disease was not incurred during or aggravated by the qualifying period of service, or this disease was caused by a supervening condition or an event that occurred between the veteran's most recent departure from that qualifying period of service and the onset of the disease, or the disease was a result of the veteran's own willful misconduct. So those are the exact words used in the new law release. So yeah, great point, Travis.
And 3 packs of cigarettes a day would be misconduct. And if you're smoking that much a day, I encourage you to get help, because we want you to live a very long time. So find a way to quit that horrible habit.
So on that, I agree. It is a horrible habit. So on that, I know in the past, and I keep referring to Agent Orange exposure because that's really the presumptives we have to go on mostly. Back in the day when Vietnam veterans filed for exposure to Agent Orange, it was only boots on ground to start with, okay? And this goes back to the small window opening up into a bigger window. Then they went to brown water. So if you were in the Coast Guard or you were in the Navy and you went up the riverways in Vietnam, then they started looking at that. And then they switched it to blue water. So you can see how the progression just kind of happens. And I'm telling you that because people have filed claims for those conditions, and the VA has done what's called a NEMR review. All right. NEMR was a law. It was a lawsuit against the VA, which said that basically it just said that you changed the rules. You need to go back and you need to service connect these people who had applied before. Okay. So the VA went in and they did a NEMA review, and they service connect people who applied for diabetes or applied for one of the presumptive conditions. So I'm telling you that because right now, currently, and I've got numbers up for rhinitis across the total time period that we're talking about, there were 410,810 claims just for rhinitis. All right.
Wow.
For sinusitis, there were 322,137 claims just for sinusitis, and for asthma, 212,805 claims, which they say is totally there have been like 8.4 million claims for these conditions. Okay, so I tell you that the VA may do a NEMR on this one also. They may go back and they may service connect. Sorry, I got a fly on my face, but I would encourage you that if you were previously denied, then you take those steps that Stacey talked about before, and do that 0995 with a statement on a 4138 and get that submitted. Don't wait for the VA to do it for you. That can take a long time. And since these are so new, it could take a couple years before they ever do a NEMA project on it.
Darrell, outstanding information right there. And there is something that I want to add on to. I imagine that if you're in this subgroup that I'm getting ready to talk about, it's very possible that you're not going to be watching today. because this no longer applies to you because you have finished your journey at 100% permanent total. But if you are at 100% permanent in total, put on the brakes, okay? Think about this. Don't be thinking, oh, I can go back and get some back pay or whatever. Yeah, you might, right? But I would just kind of wait for what Darrell was talking about. Wait for the VA to pull the trigger. Don't you pull the trigger. And this is a real quick lesson for everybody. If you're 100% permanent total, you're in the archives, you're collecting dust. You're an old book collecting dust, and they just kind of forget about you, right? But the moment you reapply or you do something on your own, you are right there front and center being inspected top down. And that is what you do not want, okay?
Yeah.
And what a great point, Travis. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I want to hit a couple quick questions here that I've seen in the chat here. Real quick, Ashley, 4138 is simply a statement in support of claim. It's simply where you just put your story down, whatever you need to get across. And then I saw another one here. I wonder, Maria, your husband got out of the Army 30 years ago. Can he still start his claim? Emphatically, yes. So I will tell you, I was out of the Army 24 years before I filed my first claim, and through VACI, they helped me. I was a client here before I became a coach. Today, I'm 100% permanent in total. So it is absolutely possible. So if your husband is looking for some help, we'll flash it back up there again, vacifree30.com. Jump in there and sign up. We'll get you hooked up with a coach and walk you through the process. Okay. So free 30-minute strategy, no obligation, anything like that. We'll just take a look at your case and let you know if we can help. Most likely we will be able to help. Okay.
Hey, the effective date, just so people are aware of this, the effective date is August 5, 2021. All right, that is the effective date. And somebody else put it in here earlier. Yeah, you know what? The VSOs, the American Veterans, American Legion, they are part of the reason why this got pushed through. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And some external entities as well. People contacting their Congress people, contacting senators, stuff like that. So absolutely, every little bit helps. And I misspoke earlier. It's actually from August 1990 on to December of 2021. Then they're allegedly going to stop it. So, so I apologize for that. I did misspeak.
Roland, do we have a coach here in Hawaii? No, but I would love to be. Here's the beauty, though. We are a virtual company, so everything we do is online or on the phone, email, text. We can get you through this process. We don't need to have, we're doing face-to-face stuff right now, right? So we don't need to sit across the desk from each other. So we can certainly help you.
Roland, we have some coaches in California. Our coaches are sprinkled through all of the major time zones here in the continental United States. And so we might try our best to pair you with a West Coast. That way you're at least a little bit more in line. Because, it might be kind of hard for you to coordinate with an East Coast coach, for example, because of such a big difference.
Awesome.
Kervin, can you get funds for your son who just left for college on disabled vet, but not yet 100%? Darrell, you want to hit that one?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Chapter 35 benefits kick in when you become 100% permanent in total. And up until that point, unless your local American Legion kind of scholarship or anything like that, then no, the VA doesn't really provide anything as far as education benefits, but you are, if you have them on your award, you are getting extra money for them, and it does go up if they're in college. So, it's like $100 and some, but feel free to pass that along to them to help out. I'm sure you're already helping out anyway. College is not a cheap thing nowadays.
So I just want to see this in chat, and I want to engage with you all real quick. How many of you have sleep apnea and you've been denied for it, just out of curiosity? And no, I'm not going to turn this into a sleep apnea topic, but there is a very good point I want to bring up here shortly. Let's see what they have to say.
I bet we have a bunch. sleep
I bet we
apnea
have a whole bunch.
So unfortunately, sleep apnea is the number one most denied claim.
It is.
So yeah, unfortunately it's a tough claim to win.
And I know where you're going with this, Travis. So
Good. Good. So I'm going to preach on. So, okay. What I'm getting ready to say, first and foremost, if you don't have sinusitis or rhinitis, I don't want you to think that there's no way that you can possibly get sleep apnea. I'm not ruling anything out here, but listen to what I'm getting ready to say carefully. Sleep apnea is the number one most denied claim, okay? As a secondary, attaching sleep apnea as a secondary condition, it can happen, it does happen, but rare and few and far between, unless, Darrell?
Well, you know what? If you can get service-connected for sinusitis, rhinitis, asthma, so here's the deal. Sleep apnea is a respiratory condition. Sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma are respiratory conditions. So the VA has now just opened it up to all those people who were denied for those three conditions to come back in and on a presumptive basis get service connected for those, which builds that claim for your secondary sleep apnea condition, because it's a lot easier to service connect a respiratory condition to a respiratory condition. You can make the reasonable assumption that you have sleep apnea, and it's at least 50% probability that it's caused by one of those presumptive conditions. So, don't give up hope on those. And I know I've done a lot of talking with veterans, and they say, well, I'm 52 years old. Guys my age, we didn't have sleep apnea when I was in service. I have it now. The VA gave me a CPAP, but I didn't have it in service. So now's your door opening back up as far as getting that sleep apnea secondary to one of those presumptive conditions.
Yes, and not only that, like sleep apnea is obviously a high value claim at 50% if you have the CPAP machine, but it literally goes from being the number one most denied claim to almost, okay, I'm not ever going to guarantee or say anything's 100%, but if you're able to connect sleep apnea secondary to like sinusitis or rhinitis, it's almost a slam dunk, all right, almost.
Poor Travis has problems with saying sinusitis.
Sinusitis.
I do.
Yeah, actually,
and I have it.
Too.
I have a tough time with it. I really do.
Those college professors,
Right. Oh man. So you guys got anything to add on that topic about sleep apnea becoming an easier connection for those issues?
For those issues, absolutely not. I mean, that is actually where I've seen the most success, is getting it secondary to those conditions. Probably one of the least successful would be the people trying to do the sleep apnea secondary to a mental health issue.
Right.
So this does open the door for that. But keep in mind, just because you go to the VA and the VA diagnoses you with something does not mean that it directly translates into service connection. Okay. And I think that's a big, huge misconception that a lot of people have. Well, the VA gave me a CPAP, the VA diagnosed me with it, so it's CPAP. I mean, you still have to follow that Kaluza triangle that you talked about earlier.
Yes, and let's have this be an education moment for everybody. For example, I have asthma. I have it really, really bad. I'm on 3 different medications for it. All right, I'm a service-connected veteran. VA healthcare treats my asthma. They give me medicine to treat my asthma. I see a respiratory therapist, for example, right? Now, just because they're treating me for something doesn't mean that I'm service connected for it, because I'm not. I'm service connected for other things. Make sense? If I go out and I get in a car accident with my truck today, and I break some bones and I get mangled up, I can go to the VA and they're going to treat me. It's just like, it's one of my benefits. They're going to treat me, but it doesn't mean I am going to be service connected because I break my shoulder. Does that make sense? I hope that clears it up.
Hey, on that too, you're absolutely right. Just because they see you post service doesn't mean that you're going to get service connected for it. I'm seeing a lot of questions in here about things that were diagnosed in service. If you were diagnosed in service, you can absolutely get it. It's called a direct basis. That's how the VA rates a direct basis. So we've talked a lot about secondary. But it's a direct basis. If you have something in your service treatment records that you were seen for, but remember, you still have to have, you have your event in service, you still have to have a current complaint or diagnosis, okay? And then you need to have that nexus linking those two together. So, for example, if you hurt your leg while you were in service, now you've got a leg issue that's diagnosed. You still need to get that nexus to draw those two things together, okay? The current to the past, okay? So, but
and I am going to say this. If you have a buddy who says that you snort a lot while you're in the service, that is not enough. That is not enough. Okay. So don't try it.
Yeah, snoring does not equal sleep apnea. Not necessarily.
All right. Ashley asked, does it make a difference what we make it secondary to? I have all three. So for sleep apnea, the nexus to one of these other conditions or all of these other conditions is actually going to come from a clinical provider, right? A licensed practitioner, and not you. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to talk to your provider and let them know what your symptoms are. If you're diagnosed with all three of these conditions and you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, and then ask them, is this sleep apnea caused by any one of these or all of them? It really doesn't make a difference. Really doesn't make a difference. Okay. And then Mike asked, sleep apnea service connected at 0. Will the VA take over all of my supplies and replace my CPAP? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That sounds like it's very underrated.
CPAP machines. So I think there might be a waiting list right now, but absolutely, Mike.
And keep in mind, there is a difference between not service connected and 0%. Okay. Not service connected means that the VA has denied that claim. 0% means that they have awarded you service connection, but it's not at a compensable rate. Okay. So 0% is still service connection.
And those are door openers, because if you, let's say that you have something for 0%. Or let's say that you have a mental health rating, for example, at 30%. Well, we know that can go way higher. So let's say that you go through our process for whatever the disability may be, and you don't get that percentage that you have in mind that is your final goal, but you become service connected. You just won a major, major battle. That's a huge hurdle to get over, because it is always, always so much easier to go in and ask for a simple increase later, because the nexus tying it to military service has already been proven. So for those of you, again, you have zeros or you're underrated in some things, it's going to be easy to get those increased, because we're not trying to prove service connection. So don't always see that as a negative, okay?
Hey, and I just want to swing back to Mike just one more time. Hey, real quick, if you are service connected at 0% and you're on a CPAP machine, you are underrated, my friend. So get on VACIfree30.com, hook up with one of us, and we will get you on the path to a much higher rating than where you're sitting on that.
I always tell veterans that the two hardest things, or the two major hurdles with the VA, is number one, getting an examination. Once you've submitted enough evidence that they give you an examination, that's your opportunity to tell your story and to get that evidence out there. That's the number one hardest. And number two is getting the service connection. No matter what percentage you get, getting that service connection is the VA acknowledging that you have something that occurred to you in service, and now they're going to say, yeah, we acknowledge that it happened in service. From there, increases, percentages, that's all a downhill fight. It's just that uphill battle of getting it service connected first, which, back to what we're talking about today, the 3.320, the claims based on exposure to particulate matter is what they call it, particulate matter. Getting them to do that's huge. I mean, that's absolutely huge. And that opens up, like I said, 8.4 million claims. That opens up that many veterans to potentially get that service connection that they rightfully deserve and should have gotten a long time ago. All right. So that's right.
Yes. Stacey, are you service connected for one of the sinus issues? Like actually service connected for it?
I am not. No.
Okay. All right. Well, let's say that you become service connected for one of the sinus issues. All right. You might want to think about how that could substantially impact your life. Like you might be living with it right now, and you're talking to somebody, and your nose just starts running. I actually have it. I'm not service connected for it, but you're standing there, you're talking to somebody, and you got to reach for tissue because your nose just starts running uncontrollably, or you're completely just, you're suffering. It's affecting all these different things. So we could even take that and turn it into how is it impacting your life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once you get service connected for any number of conditions, to include, like you said, these 3 new presumptives, you can build on that from there. If you're dealing with other issues in your life, there's very high likelihood of potential secondary connections that we could consider and make that happen. So great point, Travis.
So you guys want to do just kind of a quick recap on some of the things we talked about? So we talked about the 3 new presumptive conditions: asthma, rhinitis, sinusitis. We talked about the countries. Caleb, you want to go over those countries one more time?
Yep. Let me pull that up again real quick. Here we go.
While he's doing that, for Iraq, veterans who served in like Iraq and Kuwait and that area, it's going to be late 1990 to present day for your time period. For those of you who served in Afghanistan, it's going to be late September 2001 to present day.
All right. And that list of countries again: Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Djibouti, along with the neutral zones, the immediate waterways, and all the airspace above those countries.
So there are a couple more that they may have added since they've updated their website, because I actually got a letter from the VA saying, hey, I should probably reapply for my sinusitis that they denied. And so they've also, along with Afghanistan, Syria, Djibouti, and Uzbekistan is on that list.
Hey, and awesome. somebody asked too. So they have a committee that they formulate that kind of goes over all of these conditions, and they do studies and they do long-term studies. So right now they've done rhinitis, sinusitis, and asthma. Okay, but some of the other conditions that they are still looking at, sleep apnea, the big one, vocal cord dysfunction, chronic bronchitis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, constrictive bronchiolitis, emphysema, acute pneumonia, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, idiopathic interstitial pneumonia, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, pulmonary alveolar sarcoidosis, acute bronchitis, pneumonia, tuberculosis, chronic persistent cough, shortness of breath, or that dyspnea that they were talking about before, wheeze, esophageal cancer, laryngeal cancer, lung cancer, oral nasal cancers, as well as changes in pulmonary function and mortality due to diseases of the respiratory system. So those are still conditions they are still looking at. So, there's going to be more to come. I truly feel that there's going to be more to come. They approved these 3 for now, but there's going to be more.
Veterans, would you like? Let me know, veterans, if you would like one more example of what should qualify relatively easy with the time frames and exposure and things like that. If you want one more example before we close out, one of us would be happy to provide that. Just let me know if you need it. And if you came in a little bit late, I think we did the example pretty early, didn't we?
Yeah.
And while Travis,
I guess there's a delay.
Well, Travis is pulling that up. If we could have ops flash up there one more time for everybody. If you want to connect with us, and we'll have that conversation with you and go through your case and see what we can do for you. Just jump over there, vacifree30.com. We'll connect you with one of the phenomenal coaches on our team and sit you down with a free 30-minute strategy session. So again, vacifree30.com.
It looks like they want one more example. Caleb, all you, brother.
All right, which one did you do early on?
So I did one that would make them eligible. And Caleb, I didn't mean to catch you off guard either. So if any of you want to do the example, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just jump on here. So I'll just use myself as an example. Okay, so I served Gulf War, so I left the country in mid 1991. I actually got out of the Army mid 1993. Okay, so I would have to show some type of evidence that I suffered from one of these three conditions by mid 2003. Sorry, my age is showing there. So 93 to 03, I would have to show something within that time frame that I was dealing with one of these three conditions in order to file that presumption. Okay. Yep. Now, here's an example of somebody that, now this, we're not closing doors, but this is somebody that it's going to be a lot tougher for you to qualify. We're going to put it that way. Okay. Let's say that we have a veteran who went to Afghanistan late October 2001. Okay. That was the exposure year, 2001. Okay. So we got our exposure. All right. They leave the military in 2009. Okay. 2009 plus 10 equals 2019. All right. So they should have gotten a diagnosis within the first 10 years out. However, it is now 2021. And now they try to go get a diagnosis for asthma in 2021. They are now 12 years removed instead of 10. It's very possible that they might not be successful. Again, we're not closing the door. If that's you, I'm not closing the door on you. There might be another way. So talk to us. But that would be an example of somebody that would not easily get it.
Right on. So it is the top of the hour. I really appreciate the panel that came together today. Remember, veterans, it's 38 CFR part 3.320. All right. If you want to write that down, look that over. If you feel like you fall into that, and you need some help with that claim, reach out to us. You know, our coaches, the coaches across the board have been trained on this and are well aware of what's going on. So reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to help you out. All right. And I thank all the veterans that came today, showed up. Steve Larson, I see you.
Look, if you've been sitting on the edge, not just pertaining to the topic we're talking about today, if you're somebody who's been trying to figure it out on your own, or you've had friends and family tell you that you need help or you need to apply, this is your opportunity. You have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain. If you've been observing us and you're afraid to make the jump, don't be afraid to make the jump. There is no obligation. We'll talk about all the ins and outs and details. All right. This program truly changed my life. I know everybody on this panel right now, we all utilize this company. It's been life-changing for all of us. Okay. And just get help. Reach out and let us help you. You don't have to do it on your own. Why do it on your own when collectively how much experience do we have collectively? Do any of you know that stat? I'm not sure, but I know it's way up there. So.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. And look forward to speaking with you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, panel.